Have you ever wondered how a robot knows that it had already completed a task 3 times? Or how a robot can keep track of how many objects it has detected? The answer can be something as simple as a counter. Today, we're going to learn what a counter is, how it works in robotics, and why counting is important when programming a robot. And of course, may hugot din tayo along the way. Because sometimes in life, hindi masama ang magbilang. Minsan, kailangan mong malaman kung ilang beses ka nang nagtiis.
Welcome to my channel, Science with a Touch of Hugot. Let's explore! Discover short stories and discover ourselves.
Let's get started. What is a counter? In robotics, a counter is a programming variable used to keep track of how many times something happens. For example, a robot might use a counter to keep track of how many times it has moved, how many objects it has detected, how many products it has picked up, how many times a sensor has been triggered, how many steps a robot has completed. Think of a counter as the robot's tally keeper. For example, if a robot picks up one object, the counter becomes first, it picks up another, second, another one, third, and so on. Simple, right? How does a counter work? A basic counter usually starts with an initial value. Most of the time, we start with counter equals 0. Then, whenever the event we're monitoring happens, we increase the counter. For example, object detected, counter plus 1. So, 0 gives 1 choice, of 2 gives 3, gives 4, gives 5. The counter keeps track of the number of events. This is especially useful when we want the robot to perform an action a specific number of times. For example, repeat 5 times, move forward. The counter helps the robot know, okay, I've moved once, then twice, 3 times, until it reaches 5. And here's our hugot. At least ang counter, alam kung ilang beses na. Ikaw, hindi mo pa rin alam kung ilang beses na. Counters and loops. Counters are often used together with loops in programming. A loop allows the robot to repeat a set of instructions. For example, start counter at 0. Move the robot. Increase the counter by 1. Check the counter. If the counter is less than 5, repeat. If the counter reaches 5, stop. So the robot can perform an action exactly 5 times. This is useful because instead of writing the same instruction 5 times, we can simply tell the robot to repeat the action using a counter. An example in robotics. Imagine a robot in a factory. Its job is to pick up 10 objects from a conveyor belt. The robot can use a counter to keep track of how many objects it has already picked up. At the beginning, counter equals 0. The robot picks up the first object. Counter equals 1. It picks up another. Counter equals 2. And it continues until counter equals 10. Once the counter reaches 10, the robot knows. Task completed. This shows how something as simple as counting can help a robot perform a precise task. Counter with sensors. Counters can also work together with sensors. For example, imagine a robot equipped with a sensor that detects objects. Every time the sensor detects an object, the counter increases. Object detected, counter increases. If 5 objects pass in front of the sensor, 0 gives us 1, gives us 2, gives us 3, gives us 4, gives us 5. The robot now knows that it detected 5 objects. This can be useful in manufacturing, sorting, inventory, traffic monitoring, and automation. Here's another hugot. Hindi lahat ng dumadaan kailangang pansinin. Pero kung may sensor ka, at least alam mo kung ilan ang dumaan. Incrementing and decrementing. There are 2 common ways a counter can change. The first is incrementing. Incrementing means increasing the counter. Example, counter equals counter plus 1. So, 5 becomes 6. The second is decrementing. Decrementing means decreasing the counter. Example, counter equals counter minus 1. So, 5 becomes 4. This can be useful when a robot needs to keep track of how many items are remaining. For example, if a robot starts with 10 objects, 10 gives 9, gives 8, gives 7. When the counter reaches 0, no objects remaining. Task complete. Why are counters important? Counters are important because robots often need to perform tasks accurately and repeatedly. Without a counter, a robot may not know how many times an action has already happened. Counters help robots count, repeat, track, control, and complete tasks accurately. Even though a counter seems like a very simple programming concept, it can become an important part of a robotic system. Counter in real life. Imagine a simple robotic vacuum cleaner. Suppose we program it to make 5 cleaning passes across a particular area. The robot could use a counter. Pass 1, counter equals 1. Pass 2, counter equals 2. Pass 3, counter equals 3. Pass 4, counter equals 4. Pass 5, counter equals 5. When the counter reaches 5, the robot can stop that particular routine. A counter helps turn a simple instruction like, repeat 5 times, into something the robot can actually keep track of. The big idea. What is a counter? A counter is a programming tool that keeps track of how many times an event or action occurs. In robotics, counters can help robots repeat tasks a specific number of times, count detected objects, track completed steps, monitor remaining items, control automated processes. In simple terms, a counter helps a robot keep track of how many. Here's the final hugot. Sa robotics, mahalaga ang counter dahil kailangan mong malaman kung ilang beses nang nangyari. Sa buhay naman, minsan, kailangan mo ring magbilang para malaman kung kailan ka dapat tumigil. Remember, counter equals count plus track plus control. A robot may be able to sense, process, and move, but sometimes it also needs to know, ilang beses na? And that's where the counter comes in. Because in robotics, even counting can make a big difference. Hindi lahat ng bagay kailangan ulit-ulitin. Minsan, kailangan mo lang bilangin kung ilang beses na, then decide when to stop.
Thank you for learning with me today. Remember, biggest classroom. Don't forget to subscribe for more lessons. Keep finding the hugot in every day. See you in the next lesson.